Hey, come on. Come on. Hey. What? Here we go, here we go, here we go now. Hey. Let's chit chat, this is the show now. Come on. Bad black mama's gonna let you know now. Hey. Here we go, here we go, here we go now. Come on. Let's chit chat, let's chit chat, hey. Let's chit chat, sis. Hey, what's up? Let's chit chat, let's chit chat, let's chit chat, sis. Hey.
Welcome to Let's Chit Chat, sis. I'm your girl, Kimmy. And on the porch with me tonight is my girl, Ramel, Chauncey, Keisha, and CG. What's going on, y'all?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, everybody.
Hey, welcome to the porch tonight. We got a really hot, I'd say, what sensitive topic we're going to talk about tonight. But before we get into that, how was everybody's week this week?
It was good. It was good. So far, so good.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
let's not jinx it. It's going
Right?
good.
It's
We
okay
got
to
over the
jinx
hump.
it sometimes. It's okay to jinx it because you know what? You could jinx it in a good way. Jinx it ain't always bad. You know, throw a little mix in there, something go haywire, have a little fun,
A little good haywire,
a
huh?
little good haywire. That's,
I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, I definitely will take
I
that.
know, because don't you get tired of the same old sometimes?
Absolutely.
I know, I'm telling you.
Well, I'm on a detox right now. So so far, so good. Yesterday and this morning were my my hump days for that detox. So the symptoms were really bad for me usually on the third or fourth day. So
Yeah.
You doing like a water fast or something?
no water fast. I ain't
Okay.
Jesus. I'm doing a green smoothie cleanse. Yeah.
I did
I'm
that.
doing
I lost like 50
Oh,
pounds doing
I've
that
done
one
that
time.
before.
Yeah. So it works really well for me. And since I ate my way through September, since that's my birthday month with all my birthday freebies, it's time to just get on track. So I'll have a little wiggle room for the holidays.
Can you leave the house with the after having the green smoothie?
Oh yeah, no problem. Wait a minute, and I take Mago 7 with it every night. So
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Are you
totally.
Are you
doing the
no.
JJ Smith?
JJ
one?
Smiths, yep.
Yeah, I
Actually,
did that before. I've done that
I'm
one
not
before.
right, and I'm doing the green smoothies for life, which is
Okay,
the month
I've done that,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm doing
they're
that
good
one.
too.
So
I like
very
the
good.
recipes. They're very good. Yep.
Yes, very much
So
so.
you don't have no food with that?
No, I have food. I have 2 smoothies a day and a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell y'all.
And the
No,
snacks
it's good.
the snacks that you're allowed to have in between. Yeah, it does. I've done
It's
very
actually filling. Uh-huh.
It's very filling. I sometimes I
Mhm.
can't even do the 2 smoothies. So and by the time you get to the end, when I do the 10-day one, which is the 3 smoothies a day with the snacks, yeah, I've lost like 25 pounds in that 10 days. It really works.
Damn.
Yeah, I have to share it with
If you want to lose 25 pounds quickly, do a water fast for 3 days.
Mhm.
Do a water fast for 3 days and throw some lemon in that water.
Yeah, I've
It's
done.
gonna pull it off for you.
Yeah, I don't lose that much, but
I'm about to say 25 pounds
Daniel-
seems a lot.
yeah,
It's
but
a
Daniel
lot, but it'll
fast
come
helps
off for
me.
you. It'll come
Right.
off you. Your pants gonna be shaking around your waist. I'm telling you, it's gonna come off you. Drink
The
this
problem is
water.
keeping it to stay, having it to stay off. So, I'm a carbaholic. So,
I mean, everybody like carbs. I don't care how nobody say. If you totally cut carbs out your system, you gonna sneak something in. Gonna take that one little pretzel, poof, and you gonna be right like, I'm in it. I'm back.
it's the potatoes for me.
Okay.
That's what So
No,
when
you
I
don't eat the
detox, then I feel
carbs
it.
out, you're gonna be a raving bitch. That's what's
Well, so far I'm doing okay. So considering I'm menopausal, I'm doing all right so far. So
I know, because you know what? You gotta have a little carbs. You cut that out. It's just not realistic.
yeah, it's not.
Well, this one, the carbs that you have are the carbs that are within the fruit and the vegetables and
Yeah.
stuff, but there's no bread or anything in it. And yeah, so it works. It's just the maintaining, when you want to do bad. So, but
I mean, don't you think
I'll take
sometimes,
it.
won't y'all be honest? Don't you want to think you'd be like, fuck, I just want to give up. You know what I mean? Just eat everything and just
No, because I get full. The crazy thing is, I'm truly it's metabolism with my age and the menopause because I'm active. You know what I mean? I got a Pilates reformer. I use that hula hoop. I'm constantly active. It's just,
It's
I don't eat
menopause.
a lot, but
It's
it is what it is.
menopause. That's what it is. When I
Yeah.
say give up, sit down there, eat some M&Ms, eat some cake, uh, I
I'm
can
gonna
give
do
up.
that anyway.
I can give up. I can give up food to eat some. That's my guilty pleasure is chocolate.
Yeah, me too. Mhm.
Chocolate.
Yeah, for
I don't want
sure.
no dark chocolate because it made me think of X-Lax, but I want some milk chocolate. I mean, you know how you have like childhood things that just still just haunt you? Like,
Yep,
I
the
don't
X.
like to see like Hershey chocolate bars because I think about X-Lax. And I remember my grandma used to say, it's going to taste just like a Hershey bar. No, it don't. And it don't do you like a Hershey
Wait,
bar.
and the bad part, I don't know about your family, but they kept ours in the refrigerator. And
Yes,
he's
and
like,
you saw it sitting on
no,
the
that's
It's like,
not what it is.
I don't think X-Lax is even sold anymore. Something
They
must
still sell it.
do they?
Yeah, in some places.
Yeah, it must be
No.
potent now because I've been in somebody's warehouse for 20 years or more.
No,
I bet
you just got,
take that.
we all just got cityfied. So we do things like Duke-Lex and stuff like
Oh, I
that.
can't
Right.
do
That's
that.
all.
Yeah, that Jack comes up. But you know what? Let's talk about our topic tonight. Mental illnesses in, the family, in our families, How do y'all feel about that topic? Because to me, I was before, because I'm gonna start jabbering on. Mental illness in the family is something near and dear to me because as a little kid, it was people in my family, in my immediate family, that I couldn't relate that had mental issues, which I'll say was they were dealing with mental illness. That my grandma was helping, taking care, because my grandma was like the helper of everybody. And I didn't know why this person was nonverbal, couldn't come out the house and things like that. We used to have all these names for this person, but they weren't good names. You just knew not to kind of bother with them because something can go terribly wrong. But we never talked about the things that, which we kind of thought that, okay, you're normal, but you still are dealing with mental things or mentally challenging things, okay? And I'll just use myself. And I was talking to everybody before we hit the record now button, and anxiety runs deep in my family, even with my children. I don't know if my mom deals with it or my dad ever dealt with it because they never expressed it. But I know I dealt with it since I was a kid, like a little kid, even down to like being in St. Malachy's, thinking about getting to school on time. Hell, it was 15 walking blocks. I mean, not 15 steps, and I'm at the front door, but things like that used to make me wake up in the middle of the night and I would be, racing ahead and making me feel a certain way. But nobody knew because I didn't express it to nobody. The fear of, somebody thinking that something was wrong with me or, or just little things that I was dealing with as a child. Then one day I started telling my mom, because I remember me and my mom used to go on Saturdays to on her shopping days, which was Saturdays, to get shoes. And I used to tell my mom, I always feel scared that something is going to happen. I always feel scared. That was anxiety. I always feel scared something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. And my mom used to kind of talk me down from it. She was like, nothing going to happen that God don't want to happen. But Mom, that's kind of an open statement, and I'm grown, that God can want anything to happen, you know what I mean? But she would, you know what I mean? Like, but it used to give me comfort, like, okay, well, God is comforting me and going to keep me, but things like that. Fast forward now, because I don't want to be running on. I have two great children, but one of my children is autistic, and my other son, he deals with anxiety as well. But my daughter's anxiety is probably greater than my son's. She suffered with it for years, and I never knew what was, going on with her. We have been to many, many doctors because I always felt like if I take her to so many doctors and therapists, we're going to figure out what's going on, but not realizing it was a work in progress, you know. So I didn't want anybody to give her a label. Once they did give her a label, which was having autism, you know, she's very, very, very bright, but they gave her a label as autism. I just felt like I need to make her not considered normal, because I really didn't care about that, but I need to make sure that she's happy. You know what I mean? Need to make sure that we work on her being happy, because anxiety and depression was something that she used to go, it's like being high, then you drop down to super low. You see what I'm saying? So these are things that I have to deal with, and I'm going to always have to deal with, because I'm never going to separate from my child. You know what I mean? My child is my everything to me, and regardless of what life takes her, but you know, it's just an ongoing battle. So that's me rambling on about what goes on with in my little inner world about mental illness, and how I deal with it and what it means to me, because I dealt with it head on, you know, and my mom dealt with it head on in her own way. I never went to a therapist when I was a child, but I did go as an adult, because you know, times changed and we were more open about talking about what's going on. So who wants to go next?
I'll just say that in my family, we kept it so private. You didn't talk about it. They didn't talk about it in the house. You couldn't talk about it outside. I had an uncle who we lived with in Yorktown, and everybody in the neighborhood knew something was wrong with him. They rarely addressed it. And he would, you know, come downstairs with damn thumbtacks in his face. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? But nobody ever explained it. And when you ask why he got thumbtacks in his face, oh, he's just going through something. And I mean, I was, you know, 10, 11, 12 years old enough for you to explain it to me. But they don't want you to mention it outside the household. It was kind of crazy. And so, you're supposed to say that word right now, but you know what I'm saying. It was I didn't mean to say that, but it was, you know, so we Black families, at least in the communities that I've lived in, don't want to address it because they feel it's embarrassing. We don't want to talk about it, but it's time we talk about it, because it's not going to get any better. Many of the homeless people we see on the streets that are African American or Black, they're there because they have mental illness, not just because they want to live on the streets.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, I piggyback on what you say, Ramel. You know, when we grew up with it, it was something that they didn't want to talk about. You know, I was fortunate because my mom moved to a different part of the country. So we started out on the West Coast. And so things were very different there. Socially, things were very different there as far as having therapists, going to see therapists. So my mom introduced us to it very early, right? Because she was in it for herself. And so when times seemed to get trying, and when I think about Kimmy, what she's saying about being scared, you know, you always knew that kid who was always scary, right? We always knew kids that were scary, and that was the description. Oh, you know, they just kind of scary, as opposed to using the word anxiety. So as society progressed, we started using different words, right? And then, you know, we all had those uncles that were upstairs in the room, and what we found out, or now realize, is that a lot of them were in the Korean War, World War II, Vietnam. So they were technically dealing with PTSD, right? But we didn't know what that was at that time, right? So we now know, and the light bulb comes on, and it's like, wow, we have been dealing with this for so long. Or the promiscuous girl in your family, right? You know, and you started talking about her, and when we always thought that it was her and she was just fast and, you know, whatever, it was actually because she was being molested by a family member or a family friend. And so that was how what happened to them manifested later on and manifested in different ways. So yeah, we didn't talk about it, and we tried to keep things internal within the family, or we tried to pray it away, right? because we all know Jesus is my therapist. And so, that's been thrown at us in many different ways as well. But
I'm curious
thank
about
God-
CJ, if he, in the generation that he's in, if he finds that people don't want to talk about it.
I ain't that old. I'm 34, so it's not. I mean, my experience has been pretty much the same. I mean, within the family, actually now people are starting to get more open to it in the family. But I mean, growing up, it was one of those things where it was like you kind of like swept it under the rug, and
So same thing.
it was more reactionary, if anything, because it wasn't really I don't want to say it wasn't a concern for mental health. It wasn't acknowledged. It wasn't acknowledged as a mental health thing. So like, I could just say if I got one cousin who's been molested and she's very aggressive. She's very aggressive. Like, and a lot of people, they might look at her and be like, oh, well, she's acting out because of X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, this is a trauma victim. Like y'all, a lot of people aren't really addressing the mental health issues. That's what I've seen, is that most people don't really address the actual issue. We address that surface layer issue, and we're not really digging deeper into it after that. Other than that, the remedy is like, hey, go pray about it, or or it comes from that standpoint.
Just like Chauncey said, just like she said.
Yeah, people bringing their own ego into it will be like, oh, well, I went through X, Y, and Z, so if I cope through it, then you definitely got to be able to cope through it. So your issue is null and void because I survived through it. And I don't. Yeah, it's not really easy in this generation either. Now we've got this.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy in this generation. It's not easy in any household, but in the Black household, it's a stigma, because
Yes,
it's a stigma. And that's a little different because, it's looked upon as something where, and I'll just say, because Keisha, I want to hear from you,
It was just like I had a cousin, and you would just say, or the family would just say, that person having another episode again, and they might have to go into a facility for a little while, but they never really got down to the root of the cause of it. We just knew, and we would say, well, you need to go and help that person. They're having like I said, an episode, and after that's over with, it's just what it is, over with, and you move on to the next thing, until the next episode.
and that's
And you never really get down to the meat of
why,
why.
Of why, because mental illness is not anything that a person really has control over. You know what I mean? It could be a chemical imbalance, you can't control what your body is naturally doing, that you can't control, let's face it. Or if you've been violated, if you've been violated, you've been violated, I will say for myself, life has taken me in lots of paths, and when I think about my own life, hell, I got PTSD, Really, I got PTSD. And I know that if somebody called me crazy, I'd probably take that tag, because, every day is not going to be a good day. Y'all, really, I want y'all to laugh, because every day is not going to be a good day. That's why I should never do drugs. I should never be a fucking alcoholic, because I'm going to jail. Because, really, it's not going to work out, because when they start doing, how the court get there and they start reading your history, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, this lady been through a lot, But, all jokes aside, these things are something that I reflect on, and it wasn't easy, but it did put me in a depression state. It did give me high anxiety, and I will be the first person to admit, because I tell anybody, I like to be a transparent, open book, because I have taken medication when I haven't felt my best, because at the end of the day, I still had to raise kids. I still had to work a job, I couldn't go into a facility when I felt like I was in a dark mode. I still had to be functional, so when we think about things like that, and then, I have siblings still right now who deal with the ups and downs, and guess what they say to me? I guess it's just something in our family. So when we say it's something in our family, that means that we're not dealing with it. You see what I'm saying? We're not dealing with it. So we probably get more into this when we start talking about secrets of the Black family, because that runs deep, you know, when we start talking about issues. But when y'all think about mental illness, right, and the labels and the stigmas that come with mental illness in your family, like Keisha said, she had the uncle. I had this uncle, and this uncle was really big. He used to wear a pamper, right? And he was big. He was like the Incredible Hulk. We was groomed to, don't you go up there. My grandma lived in the duplex off of 8th Street. Don't you go up to that 3rd floor, because he's up there. Put the food there at the door, knock on the door, and come back downstairs. That was his home for years. For years. And the mom fed him, and it was just, that was like where he needed to be somewhere getting help. You know what I mean? But just like you said, Ramel, no one was talking about that. Was considered like normal. If he would have broke out the house, everybody would have ran the fuck down the street and got away quickly, because they would have been like, who let that monster out? Because he done got loose in the house. But they felt he wasn't getting no proper medical care or anything like that. It was just normal that he stayed hidden away, you know what I mean? And that was the normal thing of life, you know. That
and I think what made that normal, or that made that our practice, is because when there were issues and how we were treated. So remember, you know, they don't use the terminology sanitarium anymore, but when our people were sent to the sanitarium, you never saw them again.
Ever.
You never saw them again, and they were mistreated. The families weren't able to get their family members back, or to know or even understand what was going on with them. So that's where it turned into, we started keeping them in the house and just finding a room for them and putting Uncle Peter or Uncle Butch upstairs in the closet. I mean, in the room or in the attic. Because better we take care of them than to have someone else mistreat them. So I think that's where we came from, where we started to keep the secrets within, right? And so sometimes it wasn't that they had even done anything bad, but they had just gone through so much and no one knew how to address it. But you had no one trustworthy to help you address it.
Exactly.
And
that's true. I agree with that.
That's where it started for us as a people. So there's so many things we've had to take responsibility for without help on our own, just because they would not treat us fairly and treat us the same way as the others, you know?
So fast forward to today, okay? We hear a lot of people who now feel comfortable talking about when they're not feeling great. We got the Olympics, what's her name, Simone Biles. We got the pretty girl,
Naomi Osaka.
You know what I mean? And it's kind of like a double-bladed sword, you know? You got a lot of people feeling empowered to come out and say, you know what, I'm not feeling my best, you know? I'm not feeling my best. So you guys, are y'all seeing this again? I mean, maybe you're not seeing it in your immediate families, but are you seeing this in your circles? Because that's huge, because I know I have girlfriends that are now telling me things about their mental health. And that's a big change. You know what I mean? That's a big change.
I think now we're labeling it. And so we're labeling it and we're saying mental health, right? But, you know, I know a circle that I have, you know, we all go see therapists. We talk to therapists. I talk to a therapist. So I have no problem reaching out, asking for help. I think what happens is we share what we're going through, as opposed to putting a label on it to call it mental illness. I think that could possibly be the difference between where we're going now. And when you look at the athletes who are feeling empowered to do it, I think they get the negative backlash from it, because people still feel like they own some part of them, right? Because we come and see you and you played this sport and we pay our money to see you, then, you know, you have to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, turned on when we need you and when we want you. And I don't think that that's fair. I think it's fair for them to be able to say, hey, I need a moment to myself. But
Yeah.
if you're on your way to a championship, like, who gets to do that, right? So it's almost like, no, you have a job to do. You go do your job. I don't care what you're going through. You
But
got
I
to go
think it
fulfill
I
it.
also,
think it's,
I think it also has to do with the fact that we're seeing more people speaking up about their mental health. It's because of those athletes. They feel empowered. And when
Right.
you do see your favorite athlete saying, no, this is not right, I don't feel well, then it's, oh, she could do it, then I can do it. And the back and disregarding the backlash on a celebrity level empowers some of us to
Yes,
say,
for sure.
you know what, if she can walk away from $1 million on the tennis court, I can do it. I can take a week off and get my shit
Right.
together.
Okay,
So
so
I
I'm
think
gonna
it
play,
empowers people.
I'm gonna play
Right.
the, you had something to say, Keisha?
yeah, I was gonna say that I'm glad that we are getting to a point where you can say, it's okay to say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we're at that point now. And one thing about now, you cannot heal what you do not reveal. That is what that you can't. It's just not
Mhm.
going to happen. And so the more we dig deep within ourselves, because I believe that we all at times have a depressing moment. You might not be clinically depressed, but you go through your highs and
Yes.
lows, your ups and downs,
Of
your ebbs,
course.
your flows.
I'm
And
so glad
so
you said that.
sometimes, yeah, and that's life.
Yep.
For most of us. Sometimes it's a little different, it's
Right.
deeper, but
Mhm.
it's okay. And like I said, if you keep it down, then you're not going to heal from it, and you're not going
Right.
to thrive from it.
And people think that life is linear, right? That it goes in these straight lines back and forth, the way you move a vacuum cleaner back and forth, but it's not linear, right? It's non-linear. So the way that we are, like you said, we have these ebbs and flows of emotions, and learning how to deal with them and cope with them, or learning how to not stay there, right? And so we
That's
need
it.
help from someone to show us how it's okay to have that emotion. You just can't stay there,
Stay
right?
there.
And so that's what it's about. And so but it takes us such a long time to get to that point. CG, I see you.
I got to push back a
wanted to
little
say
bit on
something.
that. I got to push back on two
Yeah,
comments.
because I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say, go ahead.
I get the whole, being able to heal from the things that you reveal, but y'all also got to understand that sometimes there's no healing for this. It's maintenance.
That's true.
There's no like, and that's what a lot of people aren't really understanding, is that when it comes to mental illness, sometimes there's no cure. There's no cure. You're just dealing with the day in and day out maintenance. So it's not as simple as just saying, oh, well, don't stay there, or, just heal from it, because if you're not consistently maintaining it every day, you're going to get back there, or you might
That's
just
true.
get there, period, just because that's part of your diagnosis, or if you have a diagnosis, or if you have, if you're clinically actually, diagnosed with something, that, yeah, it's something that you're going to have to deal with in the future. I mean, you could even have something, a situation where I have a lapse in my medication. And then boom, here we are right back to square one. One thing I've seen with a lot of mental illness is like, it seems like there's certain illnesses that are more forgiving than others.
Right.
One thing that I see, when people are like, oh, I'm down. All right, that's cool. Like, I see a lot of support for that. But like, when we see mental illness manifest itself through violence or something like that, I think a lot of people lose scope and lose sight of the fact that this is mental illness, it's acting out right now. So I think that we really need to do a lot more research and understanding into what it looks like, because for right now, most of what I'm seeing is like, I just feel bad, but like, I don't see a lot of, support for people who are really going through things that may not necessarily, have people that are like, I can overcome this and come talk to you. There's people who are really scared to approach certain people with certain type of mental illnesses, just because of the how they react from it.
Yeah, because it's a spectrum of it, right?
Yes.
Like you just said, there are so many. So when we sit and we say mental illness, that's a gamut
Yes.
of
Absolutely.
different types of different issues. So then when we say it, we're not being specific. And so then therefore, all of us aren't capable of coping with someone who has a mental illness. Like you said, especially someone who would be bipolar, right? I never even thought about bipolar until B.B. Moore Campbell wrote her book many
Right.
years ago, 72-Hour Hold. And so when I read that,
daughter.
and then, right, and it was about her daughter, right?
Mhm.
And so, who happened to be an actress, right? That we were all pretty much familiar with. And if you fast forward 20, 25 years, her daughter is still coping with that. So we see her every now and then on a TMZ or something like that. And they're from Philadelphia. And so when you look at that and you see how long it can go untreated, or just like CG just said, this particular day, I just didn't take my medication. And so then therefore you're right back to square one. So then where are the rest of us and how we understand it and the empathy that we have and the understanding? But when it becomes a violent situation, like CG just mentioned, then people automatically start to think about themselves, and then therefore they don't understand anymore. So then the empathy that's given to the person who's in that manic mode at that time is almost non-existent. So you
that
have
comes
people,
to education, though. That really comes to education.
no, I'm sure it does. And like I said, and with Ramel being in the healthcare industry, then she knows better than anybody. Yeah, everyone's not capable of being able to do that. And, you know, Keisha was talking about being able to reveal it, but you know, that's a vulnerability. That's a vulnerability that everybody's not willing. Everyone should not be privy to your vulnerability. Does that make sense? You should not be vulnerable to everybody.
I don't think it's a privy, because I think that's where the stigma comes in at. You know what I'm saying? That's where the stigma comes in at, because just like CG said, I'll say honestly, 90% of this is not something that's a curable disease. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a maintenance. You know what I mean? So the more open and transparent the person is, it doesn't matter if somebody chooses to judge you or whatever. You know, sometimes you have to give them the information, whatever information you give them, and they choose to do, or whatever they choose to do with it. If they choose to get it out with it, or say, hey, I don't want to really touch that information, because people handle things differently. You know what I mean?
They do, but the only issue.
Wait a minute.
Right, the only.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Wait, because when I'm saying this because relationships are crucial with people with mental illnesses. It's crucial. Yes. So when we say privy, we have to tread lightly when we say privy, because when you want to give information to somebody, it's not, I'm not talking about like to the doctor's office or things like that, but we're talking about family. You know what I mean? That's huge, Chauncey. That's huge.
It is, but that same family, in the way that I'm speaking of it, when I say privy to it, in other words, everyone doesn't deserve my vulnerability. I still have to be careful about who I share it with, because people, even your family, can still hurt you with the information that you've given to them. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about keeping it a secret. I'm talking about really being able to know that a person is going to help you and not hinder you.
But I think we're talking two different things right now, because if you're dealing with mental illness and we're talking about vulnerability, I think there's two different spectrums, okay? Because when I think about, because I live with a child that has mental illness, and when I think about her vulnerability, Chauncey, it's not the simple fact that she tries to give that information to, say, my sister. You see what I'm saying? I have to kind of coach my daughter to give that information to my sister, because I think it will help her in the aspect of her being able to relate more to my sister or my brother. They don't openly, most of the time, and it depends on the person. I'm talking about in a family unit. I'm not talking about a stranger. I'm talking about in a family unit, you know, because they're not just openly coming out and telling you, I'm suffering. That doesn't usually happen.
Right.
So when we talk about these type of giving information out like that, usually, and I'm talking because I'm her mom,
Right.
that's usually a very, very delicate kind of conversation. And when she gives this information out, usually that's something that you have to build to. So if somebody is
Right.
going to use it in the wrong way, it's kind of that red light was already there. You see what I'm saying, Chauncey? It was already kind of say that the predator or the offender was already there. Now, if she was there having a relationship with that person, say a cousin or something like that, because nobody else was around and that was the only person in the family unit, and you just needed to have someone as a helping hand or a person to lean on, and I'm the person with that mental, I can see that happening because there is no support system in the home. So I think we have to build it down to the support system. But I think we're talking two different things right there, because me living it, maybe you know different if you're living it with someone in your immediate family, you haven't disclosed that. But I can tell you in me living it day to day, it's something totally different. You want to say something, Keisha?
Well, I think that that we are all talking about various spectrums, aspects of mental illness. I was talking about more so your daily, things that we go through. CG was talking about when somebody is very clinical depressed and may need some extreme help. You're talking about issues with your family and being a mom. Chauncey, a broad range of it, and we're right and wrong in different aspects of it. And I was thinking we were talking about help and family, and when we were talking about revealing and saying, a lot of the times we don't even have to say those things to the family because that's not the help that that child needs. You're a family member, but your help might be to help her with a therapist or something like that. So all of that, sometimes a different help will be my family member, if it's not as deep or as something we can help as a family, but sometimes revealing stuff to cousin Susie down there who gonna say, you know what,
that's
her
not
child so and so and so, that would affect you. That's what you're talking about. Sometimes when I say we do this, you say, well, no, maintain. That pertains to that situation. So we all are talking about a gamut of different things.
I agree.
Because
I wouldn't have a conversation. I would agree with that, Keisha, because I wouldn't say that my cousin, I would have a conversation about my daughter with my cousin.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. I couldn't be hurt by my cousin because I'm not going to have a conversation with my cousin, and my daughter's not either. You see what I'm saying? She's more guarded than me. Now she would have one with my sister, and actually my sister would be like a therapist to my daughter because they're close. And some things that she may not, it may be an instance that she may not talk to my sister about, that I may be the one that segue through to my sister. That's what I was speaking about. But when we say that you have to be careful, how we gotta be careful in general with people in general. You see what I'm saying? But I understand what you were saying, Chauncey. You have something to say, Mel?
I think the help can come from places where you least expect it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then also education is key. If we educated ourselves or our children were educated on different aspects, not the deep down and dirty on mental health, but just recognizing that it does exist, then there wouldn't be such a stigma attached to it when they go up and go over their friend's house and they see that the uncle is acting a little off. They would recognize, okay, he's probably got a mental illness, and that removes some of the stigma because now we're not laughing at him because they know what it is. We're now they sympathize or empathize with that person. So I think we have to educate, and then we just have to remember that the help can come from a place you would least suspect.
Right. And so then therefore, that's what I was saying about the vulnerability. So you're that person's going to feel. Kimmy was just saying how her daughter can be very guarded. And so, but then there might be someone that comes across her where she feels like she can release that information and share some of her information with, to be vulnerable with them. And like you said, Mel, that might be that person that could offer that person that's in that moment exactly what they needed when everybody else in the family weren't able to provide the same thing. It can be a very small window of opportunity for that to happen, but that's how some people have gotten it. And like you said, to teach our kids to have empathy at a very early age, to know that what the differences are between us, to care for more than to shy away from someone who's experiencing that. And then to understand, like you said, to educate ourselves, because when we were in school, we had, the kids who were in learning disability, we called them LD classes, right? And so they had learning disabilities, but we just labeled everybody back then as mentally retarded, right? But because we didn't know about autism and the spectrums of autism and things of that nature, or the bipolarism and the manic depression, and people being so high and so low. And now when we look back on it and we run into people that we grew up with or people that we knew, and we find out what their issues are now, and then we start thinking, wow, when we were in third grade, that person was, showing signs of that at that time. And then it makes you think about how you treated them, right? And so you think about those family members and what they're going through, and just trying to be there for them, and to be willing ourselves. I think it's also hard to say, oh yeah, you should go get therapy, but couldn't we all use some therapy? Couldn't we all, use the opportunity to sit down, to talk to somebody and bounce things off of them?
I think that should be a part of the education early on, that therapy is okay. We wouldn't have all these high school shootings and stuff like that. Trust me, because I get what you're saying.
I think that when we look at children right now, and Keisha, you're an educator. We look at children right now. There's clearly things that, one, looking at the ratio of children in classrooms, giving teachers a lot more bandwidth far as how many kids are in these classrooms. So things can be diagnosed, If you got all these doggone children, and I'm being for real. You got all these kids in these classrooms, Kids are not the teacher is not the babysitter of these children, Teachers generally want to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on with your child. Be real. You can't say that when you got 45 children in this classroom and one teacher, and you got a COVID environment going on, you got all kinds of things going on, not let alone what's going on in the household, so it's a whole bunch of things. I don't want to miss out. Let's get CG a chance to come in.
Okay.
I mean, I agree with, there needs to be more education about it. I mean, from what I've seen in my family, I think we're getting better about it because we're talking more about it. We're definitely talking more about it. I just think that there needs to be more education about it, especially we have our expectations of like, okay, well, if you've got X, Y, and Z going on, then if I get you in this system, get you in therapy and everything, then you should be straight within this time frame. And I think that education also needs to include that, hey, there is no real time frame for dealing with this. And we have to have a more realistic approach to it.
Yeah. Sure. And Keisha, what about guidance counselors? I mean, when we were growing up, there was a guidance counselor in elementary school. There was one in middle school and high school. I don't see that they have that anymore. And those were usually people who had social work degrees and stuff, right?
They do. Now, what I can say, this year being getting back into the classroom from being remote, our focus now in education is the social and emotional. That is the number one focus now, and that's all that we talk about. That's all this thing, everything's about, because the mental health of our kids being in the house, all year long. And most of the time we're thinking about that because sometimes they're home and their abuser is at home. So it's a whole lot things happening at home and not being able to come to school all last year. Sometimes their meals were at school. And, sometimes the only friendly thing or friendly face or someone that will listen to them are the people at school. And so this year was a great big push in that aspect as far as mental health, that I can say.
That's
That was
huge
positive.
though.
But it took a
Yeah.
pandemic. I mean,
But it
come
took a
on.
pandemic, yes.
But that's huge though. I mean, regardless of where we're at right now, that's huge because if we look at what's going on, especially think about in this surrounding area, there's so many shootings going on of children, you know what I mean? Children. So if you think about that, there are shootings that in the Philadelphia region, which has escalated, and they can be victims of the shootings themselves. And then we're in this COVID environment, think about what children are going through mentally, you know what I mean? Trying to just keep keep their self together, regardless of what we may think. That has to be trying for them to try to have a normal childhood. You know what I mean? You can't come outside and play because COVID, shootings, and all kinds of stuff is going on. And now you're back in the classroom. It's a different structure than what you're normally used to, I mean, it's totally different, and I actually spoke to a girl today and I asked her about her son. I said, how is he doing back in school? She said he's doing terrible. She said, because it's hard for him to get acclimated. He's been, out of school almost a year and a half. In the Zoom with the Zoom environment and things like that. So now he's back in the classroom. He's having a hard time, Keisha. She was like, I don't know what to do. She said, it feels like he just got used to doing, the in-home schooling. Now he's having a hard time going back and forth. And then I was like, gosh, I guess you have to think about it. Kids are probably the biggest group that have a hard time with change. You know what I mean? They have a hard time with change.
Can I say this? And I don't know if it's going to be off topic or on topic or what, but there is a study that says that some of our African American boys that have were remote learning actually did better at home because they were not stigmatized. They were not labeled as bad. They were not labeled as troublemakers. They actually focused better and they got the one-on-one attention from the teacher, and they actually did a great job.
Yes.
So in some aspects, it helped with some of our boys who were mostly getting in trouble because teachers don't understand.
Right.
Yeah. And so
they're going, those parents, I've heard a lot of parents are going to stick with cyber school now instead of going back into the classroom.
Yes. And so now I'm hoping that the education realm will just kind of change up, and how, just like you said, even in the public school system, they always have that option. So that kids that flourish well
do it.
Yep. Well, I hope so too.
Because I homeschooled my daughter for high school, but I would have never been able to do that with my son. Y'all would have saw me on the FBI and my hands would have been fried around his throat because it would not have worked. So to your point, and I've heard many parents say now they're going to send their kids to cyber school as opposed to sending them back into the classroom because of the way that they thrived outside of it, because their immediate needs were addressed.
And that's good. I mean, think about it.
So
if you got an option, that is so good, because guess what? Doesn't this all start, everything that we're saying today starts with the foundation of the child,
Yeah.
If you put aside something that you may be born with, okay? But doesn't it start with the foundation of the child? when
Yeah,
something
Mel
goes
made a
wrong,
very good point. Yes, she
yeah,
made a very good point about doing it in young in school. And even
doing
if
it
you don't
young, making
call
it
it that,
normal.
yeah,
Yeah, making
yeah,
it
making it
normal.
normal.
Making it
Yeah.
normal. And we think about a lot of things that afflict our children when they're young. You know, I know Keisha is a grandmom, Chauncey is a grandmom, you know, CG has a young child, you know, but me and Mel, we still out there. We just
And don't be putting that on me no time soon.
you know, but you know
Or
what,
y'all gonna see some real mental illness over here.
but you know, dealing with young children and just having life circumstance hit them, they're totally different than when we were raising our children. You know what I mean?
Very much so.
So
Very
it's
much
a
so.
totally different spectrum. So think about what they can be exposed to now and just being able to see them, just like we were talking in the previous episode, exposing children at a young age and having a conversation. You know what I mean? Having a conversation with them at an early age can be the intersection that can cause them to have a healthy mental attitude. You know what I mean? It may not defeat the whole gamut of mental illness because again, life happens. You know what I mean? Really, life does happen. But we have to be able to have in closing, I'm just saying is have the mindset that we're willing to maintain and nurture and care for our mental health because that's what it comes down to and have the conversation. So I think this was a great episode. I think that we probably will visit this several times this season and it'll come in different types of episodes because mental health and mental illness doesn't just strike where, you know, hey, I got anxiety, I got depression.
Right.
It leaves a residual effect on people. And
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
Mhm.
it does. It leaves a residual effect on people long term. May not always be what we want it to be, but we're probably going to talk about how did this person end up with mental illness, you know? So that's what we're going to have the conversation. That's coming up at the end of the month. And that's going to talk about with our Black secrets in the Black family. Because again, I mean, I don't want us to feel like we bashing being in the Black family. We ain't had no choice in that. But I think we are proudly to say that we are trying to pull back the stigma
Veil.
that we
Pull
have.
back the veil. Just
Yeah,
pull it back.
pull it back so
Lift it up.
we can talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Talking about it is half of the battle. That's how I feel about it. Talking about it is
And,
half of the battle.
Right.
and utilizing the people in our lives who are the professionals, who are in the healthcare industry, who see what's happening, the social workers that we know, and just sitting down and having an open conversation with them and honest dialogue and asking for help and not feeling
Right.
like we have the answers or we have to avoid it.
Most definitely. Mel?
You know, I'm going to go back to education again, and I'm a big proponent of that. I'm so ready for our people specifically to remove the stigma. I'm just ready for that because
Yeah.
I see it every day in the hospital, a parent dragging their child in there, berating them, bashing them because the parent is not educated about what's happening.
Wow, that's a good one.
And so, you know, again, goes back to that. So, you know, because when the social worker from the school calls and says, your child should go to this class, what's the parent say? A lot of times those parents want to know why, and then they get mad at the social worker because they think they're putting a stigma on them, but in reality, that social worker is acting in good faith.
Right.
CG?
Just have to piggyback off what she says. Education is definitely important. I think we need to move past hashtags and actually doing the work.
That's a good one.
I can't tell you how, I mean, there's been situations where I've been in trouble and I've called out to people and like, these have been the main hashtag people like mental health matters. And it's like, yeah, it matters when you're posting a freaking hashtag, but like when it's in your face, like you ain't no advocate. So
Yeah.
I think we need to move past that and, you know, understand that that's not advocacy. That's not really helping. We need to get down and, you know, we do need to get in front of these people and start having these conversations.
Yeah. Keisha?
With them, I would just say show love, show compassion, and if you need help, and seek it.
I agree. So this was a great episode. Again, join us next Wednesday for our next episode. We're always here to empower and to uplift, never to offend. Check us out on our social media pages. This is Let's Chit Chat Sis. I'm your girl, Kimmy. Joining me tonight, there's
Chauncey?
Ramel.
Keisha.
CG.
all right, everybody have a good night and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Take care.